If you're looking to take better portraits, this video is for you because I'm going to walk you through my entire portrait process from beginning to end. So let's get right to it. What's up everyone, Pete Coco here. I am a headshot and portrait photographer with a studio in New York. And as always, before we get started, make sure you gently press that like button. You don't have to smash it. Definitely subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends. Now, a lot of you have been watching my videos, but you're not subscribing, so make sure you do that because the more subscribers I have, the more I'm able to provide even better content, and I appreciate every single subscription. Now, the first thing we surely want to keep in mind is that a successful session starts before your client even gets to the door. You need to know what the client needs the images for, what their goals are for the shoot, if any. So you have to reach out to the client, make sure you communicate with them. Another thing is you need to make sure they bring a variety of clothing options. Now, when I started, I used to tell people bring a minimum of 3 options. But what I quickly realized is that by saying that, they would bring the minimum 3 options. So now I'll tell clients, just bring half your closet, bring more than you think you need, bring a bunch of options, and this will ensure that they're gonna bring something good. So at this point, I encourage my clients, and I'll just even joke around with them, and I'll say facetiously, bring your whole closet. If we don't use it, it's not the end of the world, but we wanna try it out. And I encourage them to bring things that they feel represent them best, that uniquely represents their image and all of that too, especially for a portrait shoot because you want to get their personality in there. And the final thing that you want to do before they even cross your doorstep is you want to plan for the shoot. So what I did for this particular shoot is I took a yellow legal pad and I just wrote down what I wanted to do in the shoot. Here's how I want to start. And I wrote down maybe 5 or 6 different lighting options I wanted to try out and work with. So having a plan for the shoot and even writing it down, something you can refer to as you go, is a great way to keep yourself consistent and to make sure you're going to get awesome results. A lot of times I don't physically write it down if I know in my head what I want to do, but really the best way is just to write it down because in the heat of the moment when you're excited and taking photos, you might forget to do something and you might miss out on some great images. So having a written out plan is key. And collaborating with your client before they get to your studio is also very important so you know you're on the same page, you know you have an idea of what they're looking for. A lot of times they'll send me sample images too, so I have an idea of, okay, this is kind of the look you want. Now the next thing I'm gonna do, once they're at the studio and the shoot begins, I am going to start with headshots. Now anyone who knows me knows that I'm a headshot photographer. I've trained with Peter Hurley, and so headshots are a big deal to me because taking a great headshot of a person is not easy to do. And when you're able to do it and provide that, this is a great option for everybody. So there's a number of reasons I start with headshots. Number one, I like to kind of get the client warmed up by taking headshots of them. It's head and shoulders. We don't have to worry about an entire pose. We just have to kind of get them squared up to the camera and do that. So the first thing it does is it helps to warm them up. The second thing it does is it helps you to understand where's their best angles. And I'm also coaching them on expression. Most people have no idea what their face does because we don't pay attention to that. Unless you're an actor and to a lesser case a model, you've never really spent a lot of time building the muscle memory of your face. So you have to kind of coach your client and teach them a little bit about what their eyes do, what their eyebrows do, what their mouth does. And if you do that at first with headshots, it makes doing the portraits that much easier because now they understand what their face is going to look like. So I do it for that reason too. The other thing I like to do with headshots is I like to start, especially with a male client, with a very dramatic 3-light setup. And I'm going to link below a video I did on the dramatic 3-light setup, which is a Peter Hurley light. And it's also called the men's lighting setup. But it basically utilizes a key, a fill, and a kicker light to get really dramatic results. Now, I like starting with this because the minute the client looks at them, they're blown away because they've never seen their own face lit with this really dramatic light. And once you coach them, you give them a little coaching on expression and angles and all of this, they are now inspired. So it really elevates the shoot. Once they feel good, they are now at ease. They don't feel as nervous if there's someone who doesn't like getting their picture taken. And you're setting a great tone for the rest of the session. So with Nicholas, in this particular shoot, we started with a dramatic 3-light setup. We did a bunch of images like that, and then we wound up tweaking that to get something that we both thought was really cool. And then we did another headshot lighting, which was a 3-light sort of triangle setup, which is also one of Peter Hurley's signature lightings. And we did a bunch of very even headshots. So I call this the smile lighting because this kind of lighting looks great with a smile, with either with teeth or with just like with a smirky smile. Now the other thing I want to mention with the headshots is the lighting that I use is continuous lighting. My standard portrait sessions, I will use continuous lighting and also strobe. So let's just talk about the difference. Continuous light is just that, it's continuous, it doesn't flash. I use a Westcott Peter Hurley Flex Kit, and it's one of the best continuous lighting systems out there. The results it gives you are awesome. And I like using continuous light for headshots because you can see the results before you snap the shutter. So it's very easy to tweak the light and to get it exactly where you like it. You can see how it falls on the entire face. The other advantage of continuous light is that you don't have large pupils because their pupil is dilated by the light. So their pupil is usually at a better size for a portrait. And it gives you a lot of room to fire off your shutter without anything flashing in their eyes. So those are the advantages of continuous light. The disadvantages of continuous light is some people's eyes are very sensitive to the continuous light. Although in my experience, I found that's very few and far between. So I don't really consider that as a big disadvantage, but it's something to note. The other disadvantage of continuous light is that it's not as powerful as a flash. And if you're using the lights like I use, they're large flat panels, so you really can't modify them. So using flash has advantages because you can get a lot more light, so you can light a larger area, and you can add an endless amount of modifiers to them. So this is why I like to use both lightings, because I feel like both have a specific purpose and place. And in a complete portrait shoot, where I like to do it all in one session, I think that it really works well to start the way I just said, and then eventually you get to using strobes and doing different kinds of lightings. So once we're done with the headshots, now we're going to start with the portrait lighting. And in this particular case, the first thing I did is I took a beauty dish and I set it up above his head, angled at him, which is kind of where you want a beauty dish to be, just slightly above. One of the things I love about the beauty dish is that it still creates a lot of drama, but it's a very pleasing light on the face. And the shadows are really cast kind of underneath. Since the light's coming from here, you're gonna get shadows under the chin and sort of under the eyes. But depending on how you angle and how you power it, you can really create some cool, dramatic results and some results that aren't quite as dramatic but could be a little bit more flattering. So for some of these images with Nicholas, I added a large modifier on a flash directly behind me as I'm shooting him, so it's kind of right in front of him as a fill flash. And what I also did in this case was I used a couple of different lenses. Now in my studio, my main lens I use is a 7200 2.8 for headshots, and a 51.4 is what I use for the majority of my portraits. There's one other lens that I'll use, which is my 24 1.4. And with those three lenses, I basically can create everything I want to do. I don't think you need much more than that. So for some of these images, I threw the 24 on there just to add a little bit of drama. And I made sure that I moved around a lot. Another thing you can do if you want to kind of change the entire drama of an image is remember that you can move. Now for headshots, I'm shooting on a tripod. I like to be stationary. But when I'm doing my portrait work, the camera comes off the tripod and I'm moving about as much as I can. Sometimes by just moving from one side to the other side and shooting them from a different side, you're gonna get a totally different result. or by shooting from a little lower or from a little higher. So you gotta make sure you're moving around when you're taking portraits. Even if you don't move the lights, just by moving yourself, you will create a completely different vibe to the portrait. So I think a lot of it is just making sure you take a bunch of images and move around a lot. Now, after we got a bunch of shots with the beauty dish and with a little bit of fill flash, then I added this cool thing that I picked up recently, which is the Westcott Lindsay Adler optical spot. And basically what this device does is you put it on the front of a flash, and it has a lens you attach to the front of it, and then you can throw a pattern onto your subject or onto your background. And for this particular shoot, I decided to use this pattern that has different length lines and just cast that sort of across his face and some of it across the background. And I got some really cool results. Now, as you can see, what I'm doing is I'm kind of building what I'm doing during the session. So we start out with headshots. We start out with just sort of good headshot lighting. Then we get a simple portrait lighting with just a beauty dish. Then we add a little bit of a fill flash. Now I have 1, 2, now I'm going to a third light, adding this optical spot for effect. And as you add these different things, you're building a portfolio for the client. And the cool thing is, since I shoot tethered, which I always tell everyone you need to shoot tethered if you're not, you're seeing everything as it pops up on a screen. So you know right away, and the client will know right away if they like it or not. So at that point, we did a bunch of images using a couple of different modifiers with the optical spot just to create some sort of unique and creative results. And we did. I think we got some cool shots. And because he's an artist, these shots will work for him for promo stuff. And I even think some of the lines across his face almost infers sort of like a piano keys or something like that. So the shots really will work with your artist if you're sensitive to what their art is, and you kind of keep that in mind. Now the final thing we did after taking a bunch of images with these different kinds of lighting is then I shut off the flashes and we went back to doing portraits now, but with the continuous lights. And what I do at this point in the shoot is I will break out my posing table, which you can't see, but I'm leaning on right now. You can't see because it's really wobbly, and people have told me that it distracts them in the videos. So I'm gonna get a more sturdy table to do my videos on sooner or later, but this is my posing table. And a posing table is an awesome way to take great portraits without having to pose them too much. So what I mean by that is people feel more at ease when they're at a table because it creates a little separation between you and them. They don't feel completely exposed. And when people lean on something, they're just gonna kind of naturally do things. So you can get a lot of natural poses with someone at a posing table. So I break out the posing table. This was the last thing we did. I put Nick in behind the posing table and behind one of my artery backdrops, which I really love. And then I took 2 of my Westcott Flex panels and I arranged them sort of in a portrait mode where we got a Rembrandt kind of light. So the key light is positioned parallel to the ground and sort of above his head, just a little bit above his head. And then I had a fill light, which was more or less pointed directly at him, and both of the lights on the same side of the subject. Now, this lighting, I got this from the great Ivan Weiss, headshot photographer and portrait photographer in London. So Ivan taught me this excellent technique. And it's been working really well in my studio. So we did some shots like that with just the 2 continuous lights. Then I added a large flash modified, I should say, with a large diffuser directly in front of the client just to add a little bit of fill, to kind of take a little bit of the deepness out of the shadows, because I like to color grade, and when you color grade, it's gonna darken things in post. So sometimes you wanna shoot it a little bit above where you want the end result to be. And we did a bunch like that. And then as the last element, I didn't change any of this. I left all the lights where they were, but then I just added a Godox light stick and threw a little color on one side just for an extra little kind of effect. So So now we've got all these different lighting methods and techniques that I used in one session. And the session didn't last forever. It was about 2 hours, so it wasn't that long. But the variety we got by the end of it was really, really cool. I think that overall, by doing this, you're going to give your clients not only variety, but you're going to ensure that the session is going to be successful. All right, well, there you have it. That's basically how my session worked. I want to go over some final thoughts, though, that I think are important. I think the most important thing to take away from this video is that if you don't know how to do any of these lighting methods, you need to learn them. Now, I didn't learn all of these at once, and I'm still really working on a lot of this. So every day I'm learning, I'm trying to explore, I'm trying to push the limits of what I'm doing with light, and I'm following the work of photographers who I admire, who really are masters of light. But what I have done is I've taken one particular lighting and I've worked with it for as long as I needed to kind of master it. So the lights that I used in this tutorial are all things that I've spent a lot of time working on. So for those of you who are new, who don't really have a deep understanding of studio lighting, that's my recommendation. Take something simple, start with one simple lighting, even one light, and just explore that to the point where you feel like, okay, I really understand what the light does when I move it around and all of this sort of thing. So I would recommend you start there. And then as you get better, start to build upon what you have. Start to build upon the lighting techniques you can use. It took me quite a while to get to the point where I could not only take a great headshot, but also felt confident in taking a portrait. And it took a lot of experimenting and a lot of trial and error, but you will get there if you put the time in. You have to put the time in. So lighting is key. You want to really put the time in to get the lighting dialed in to where you know what it's going to look like. All right, well, that's basically it. That's what I got for you today. Once again, let me admonish you to subscribe to my channel. There's so many people who are watching but haven't subscribed yet. And I have a goal to get above 1,000 because once you reach these certain milestones on YouTube, they just allow you to do more with the channel. So the more subscribers I have, the more I'm able to provide to my subscribers even more relevant content and make the channel better. So go ahead and subscribe. Give that like button a gentle push. You don't have to smash it. And if you like this video, please let me know. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Hopefully this has been informative for you and also fun for you to watch. And I'm looking forward to the next one. And as usual, I hope that you have a great day, that you go out and take some awesome pictures, and I will see you all next time. Bye, everyone.